program is part of the Scene Project's podcast network. The Scene Project features interviews with independent musicians, comedians, and artists from across the Midwest. Become part of our community and support local art wherever you are.
Hi, I want to welcome everyone back to an exciting episode of Soul Impact. I'm your host, Wild Willie. Today I got with me Bubba Startz. This is an interesting one today. We're going to flip the script. I am going to be the person interviewed. So let the party begin.
This is weird hosting your show. I've hosted a lot of podcasts, but I've never hosted somebody else's. So this is going to be interesting.
Yeah. And I figured this is just a way for my audience to get to know me a little better.
Well, I thought it was a great idea. You brought it up to me a few weeks ago. It's taken us a little time to line up our busy schedules, but which is funny as much as we talk to each other these days. But to sit down and to do an episode sometimes is tough when each of you are on your own interview schedules and kind of busy doing your own thing, right? I mean, it's tough sometimes to make that space. So really grateful. I'm happy to be here, Willie.
I have so much respect for you, Bubba, and that's why I asked you to do this, because, you know, over the last 3 months, we've gotten really close, and no one else I'd rather pick my brain than you.
Yeah, well, and I'm honored. You have delivered a list of questions for me to ask you, which I appreciate because I go totally off the cuff on my show, The Scene Projects, as you know. But this is going to be fun and to kind of turn the table on you a little bit and to see how music saved you.
Exactly, and that's what I want my audience to be able to see, because they hear every week how I get these other artists to go in a little more about what they're going through. So this kind of sets the stage from how much music really means to me.
All right. On my show, the host is always on the other side of the screen. So now that we have turned the tables figuratively, now we've done it physically. So, Willie, for those that don't know who you are, even though this is your own show, how did your journey in music begin?
I would say my biggest journey with music was at a young age. I was a kid, and it was pretty rough, like a lot of physical child abuse, verbal abuse, and I was just angry all the time. So when I discovered music, I've learned, gave me the way of feeling, you know, it's okay to feel mad. It's okay to feel hurt. And it started slowly teaching me how to properly handle them emotions.
Would you say that you listened to like angry music as a young man because of that? Or was it just the way the music you were listening to was hitting you then?
I would say it's a little bit of everything. It depended on my mood. If I was angry, I would listen to, you know, some angrier songs that I could relate to and that would help me heal through that song. And then after I got over the anger of it, I would find another song that maybe wasn't so angry that I could relate to. That way I got all the emotions and I properly worked through that issue.
And that kind of leads into this next question. But, you know, before Soul Impact ever existed, which has not been very long at all, really. But what did music mean to you personally? You know, I would say outside of your work, because we know that you're a DJ with Backwoods Productions as well. Let's kind of before that, what was music to you before you ever had a career in music, let's say?
Music has always been that thing. Since I could drive, if I had a bad day or a bad experience, my thing was always turning on the radio station, getting in my truck alone with the music, and I would just drive and let the music work through whatever I was dealing with, you know, whether it was I was upset that my biological father died and the abuse was getting worse at home, and I just plugged into that and I allowed that music to naturally flow through me. That, you know, next thing I know, I wasn't so angry about my biological father dying and the abuse at home. I just kind of learned to find a resource that I was able to plug in. And I was grateful for football because, as you pinpointed out many times, I ain't no small figure. So it was able to give me that outlet, and football helped me discover music a little bit too, because when the football team would choose new intro music to come into, I was like, hey, I want to look this song up. So next thing you know, it takes a rabbit trail. And I was like, okay, if I need a hype song, this is what I'm going to listen to. So it's kind of always had a place in my heart, really.
Would you say that music kind of gave you words to the feelings that you were feeling, where maybe, like, some people go to talk therapy, right? And someone like me who's very adept at speaking their mind and speaking their feelings, where maybe, especially as a young man, you're not able to get that out in that way, that you relied on the music kind of being your voice.
Oh yeah, actually, I would say music helped me discover my voice, because when you have songs, maybe not pertaining to that situation, because part of that I have blocked out because it was so bad. But there's songs that, like, Folsom Prison Blues, where he talks about being in prison for what he's done. A lot of that, I kind of was a devil advocate kind of thing, where I used it to express some situations. And if I was at fault, it taught me to say, I'm in this situation because of the choices that I've made. So it kind of, I would honestly say music has shaped me into the man I am today.
How did your experiences growing up shape your understanding of the power of music?
Oh, that's a good question. I would say probably the most realistic would be the fact that the message you get from a song, how it's ever changing, because what you get from a song today may not be what you get from the song tomorrow. And just how it's able to help you flow naturally, and the impact music has had, like, even through the last couple of years with my divorce, it's just always been, that outlet to where I'm able to freely let go. Probably the happiest I've been is while I'm listening to music.
And now you've turned music into a career. For several years before your podcast, Soul Impact, you have had a DJ karaoke production business, Backwoods Productions. How would you say that creative work ties into, the work with Soul Impact as well? Do you feel like the two are kind of not necessarily joined at the hip, but that there is a certain amount of connection between your DJ business and the work that you do with your podcast?
Oh, absolutely. And that's a big reason what drove the podcast, is because I do a lot of the festivals and I play a lot of music for the festivals. And you can always tell when someone comes in and they have 1,000-pound weight on their shoulder, because how they intermingle throughout the day. And it's amazing because, like, one of them go-to songs you play at almost every festival is, the Cupid Shuffle, the Cha-Cha Slide, them songs that make you get up and dance. And it's amazing to see the crowd that when, you have two types of people in there. You have the ones that are doing the dance and laughing about and smiling while doing the dances. And then on the flip side of that, you have the people that are smiling and laughing at the people doing the dances, and the therapeutic quality in that in itself, because after you can see that person that feels like they have that 1,000 pounds of weight on their shoulder, and by the time that song is over or them songs are over, they're smiling, they're laughing. So I've always seen that with my DJing. And that's like when I come to you with this idea about the podcast, it resonated with me, and I've had the thought for a long time. And it's just, I don't know. Well, then seeing the two connect, it really is. And not just as an audience standpoint, but as an being on the sidelines with the artists and the artists that say, man, I had a bad performance. I think this is my last one, whatever, So it kind of go hand in hand because, in a lot of my episodes, I talk about the depression, the anxiety, the struggling artists. So I would say I would not have Soul Impact if it was not for Backwoods Production.
And you talked a lot about that massive weight that people carry. Do you feel like you're more in tune with that because you've had your own rock and weight on your shoulder like that you identify that in people and can kind of see when someone needs to, put that weight down?
Oh, absolutely. Now I'm not saying I'm perfect and there's sometimes I miss it, but mostly I really can. And I've gotten really good at seeing when somebody's faking it. Like, I wish I would have paid more attention in certain parts of my life because there probably would have been outcome would have been a little better. But at the same time, every journey I've had, it's making me who I am today. So I can't really get mad at the past because the past has made who I am. I was told at an early age that the windshield's bigger than the rearview mirror. And the reason why that is because it's more important about where you're going than where you've been. So, I tell everybody that you can reflect on your past. There's nothing wrong with reflecting on your past and improving from that. But you need to not beat yourself up as like, and a little bit, and I'll go in a little details. Like, I was so busy, I'm not focused on not becoming my stepdad and my biological father. And next thing I know, I'm exactly that person I didn't want to be. And I married someone just like them. And I hate to say it. And that's where I had to learn to break the mold because I married someone and I had that relationship my mom and my stepdad had, which wasn't a healthy relationship. I now know this is not healthy for two people to argue as much as we did. So some of that is like has shaped me now that I know the further I get into life, the more wisdom I'm going to have and be able to pour out onto other people and have this resource of Soul Impact to pour out onto people.
Did you see a gap somewhere in the music or podcast world that made you want to start Soul Impact? Was it something that you identified, or was it just something kind of inside of you that you wanted to do?
Honestly, it was I wanted to do it, but it's something I felt like I needed to do because growing up, I didn't have the available resources. I mean, granted, it's more accessible now. And that's what driven me so much is because I know them kids like I was, or young adults, or even men in their 30s and going through troubled times in a divorce or whatever the situation is, that they feel like their back's up against a wall and they have no one understands what they're going through. I want this to be a resource. So I felt I wanted to do it, but I felt like I needed to do it. I don't know if that makes any sense.
Well, but in no way was it like you looked at the podcasting industry and said, oh, there needs to be something like this.
No, honestly, I didn't. And I'm going to say it this way. Not that I don't care about the podcast industry, but I didn't care about if there was other podcasts out like this because I knew the way I delivered it would be different. So who cares if Joe Smo down the street have the same podcast when they're not going to be delivered the same. They're not going to have the rawness of it, of people being vulnerable and, the heartfelt behind it.
What do you hope people take away from your show as listeners? I know what we gain as podcast hosts and as podcast guests, right? I always say that, this is how God is speaking through us and how we're healing the world. But what do you hope it is that listeners take away from it?
I would think, and I'm going to give you two different things, because for one, the first thing is no matter who you are, where you're at in your life, the power of believing in yourself is so important. And I like quotes, and a little bit of that, but there's a quote that one person with a belief is equal to the force of 99 with just an interest. The first thing I want, whoever comes on and comes across my show or sees my show, that it is so important to believe in yourself. Even if you're not an artist and you don't have this mainline career of a podcast, whatever it is, your day-to-day life, believe in yourself. And then the other is, if you're struggling and you're at the end of your ropes, there's always hope. And a lot of people don't hear I love you. So on every episode, I try to make sure I tell people that they are loved, because we live in a society where, as men especially, we're told to suck it up and deal with it, or real men don't cry. And that's the biggest load of crock. I want people to realize is that it's okay not to be okay. I'm not going to say victimize it. I'm not going to make yourself out to be the victim. I'm not saying that. But it's okay to be not okay at the moment and move forward.
You've made an entire platform now off of interviewing people about deeply emotional, life-changing moments. What do you feel it is about you that allows them to feel safe to share those things with you and your listeners?
I think and I've heard this in a couple different interviews, I think it's my sincerity in it and how engaging I am in the conversation. And, I'm not just like, okay, whatever, you said that, whatever, I think it's how plugged in I am. I really do. And you have told me this 1,000 times. I'm a very trusting person, and I think all of them, I guess I could say the easy answer and say my personality, because I do. I just have that personality that people naturally flock to and they relate to. So I think that's a big part of it.
And what I'll kind of interject a little bit into that is that you are always extremely upfront and vulnerable yourself with your guests. You're always sharing your experience with them. And I think that's something that both of us do very well, that allow people to really dig into themselves, is that we're not afraid to share our shit. Right. We're not afraid to put our stuff out there, whether it's divorces we've both been through. Me, I've been to prison, you coming from an abusive background, right? That we're not afraid to put those things out there to put people at ease. We're not coming from a place of like being above anyone. We're coming to you on a very level playing field and just trying to have a good conversation. And I think for both of us, that comes off very naturally, and it's extremely authentic.
Oh yeah, for sure. And I've never been to jail or prison, but I did go to jail for something I didn't do. And that's where, I like to give people the voice, because not just because they have a rap sheet don't mean they're a bad person. Doesn't mean they haven't turned their life around. When I went to jail for, what I went through, I was falsely accused of child abuse, and I went to jail for it. And it come out later that it wasn't me, and I knew it wasn't me, but I spent 14 days in jail for something I've never been to jail in my life.
And a horrific charge at that.
Yeah. So, and that's not a lot of things that people know, because for one, I guess I don't want to take away from somebody else's story on my show. So I try not to go into that, because it's exactly that. Yeah, I'll say little pieces about me in there, But I want the podcast to be about, well, when I interviewed you, it's about Bubba. It was about whoever I'm talking to, you know, yeah, I'll conversate with them. But I want them to be able to, when the artists, when they leave my show, they'd be like, you know what? I was able to let go of a lot of things I didn't realize I had with even, and look how far I've come. I can now talk about these hard issues that nobody wants to talk about.
Do you see yourself more as a storyteller, a healer, or is it just a little bit of both?
Depends on the episode. Because some episodes I can relate to a little more, and I kind of get my story in there a little bit. But like I said, I honestly, I wouldn't say either. And I know that sounds messed up, but I wouldn't say a healer because, you know, I am a little spiritual. So I do believe there's only one true healer. But I think I'm a tool that gets used to deliver a message. And like I said, I'm not trying to get philosophical or anything, but
it's your show, Willie.
I think I am a vessel that is used to deliver hope to people.
To provide an environment for someone to be healed. Maybe you're not the doctor, but in some aspects you are the, you know, hospital administrator that kind of makes sure that the building is there and clean and operating so that they can be healed.
Yeah, I can say that aspect. Yeah, for sure. I would say it fits the mold of both. I would honestly say the podcast wholeheartedly fits the bill for both of those. But at the end of the day, I'm just doing what I felt led to do. If it's stand on top of a mountaintop and talk about my podcast for hours, and we all know me, I would stand on that hilltop and talk about my podcast for an hour. So yeah, it's just the realness of it. I mean, I think people know what they're getting into. They see my episodes. I talk to them. I talk to every one of the artists that are going to be on my show, either through email, through talk, through text, just because I want to be able to know them and not absolutely know who I'm interviewing. Like, I do my research. I do. I look them up. And I get to know them on that aspect. But sometimes what paperwork says about you isn't necessarily who you are. So I like to have them conversations with my artists and the people coming on my show, because let's face it, sometimes two people don't jive together. And it's okay that not everyone comes on the show because the energy don't match. And I think that is what comes so natural to my show, is that I'm really good at adapting. You know, me and you talked off air so much that we talked about that, the importance of adaptability. And I think that is what the biggest thing Soul Impact has to offer, is the adaptability of everything. And I never know. I do not send any of my artists interview questions. I don't get anything back. Now, I do have a list of interview questions. Like, when I research them, I make interview questions up about each artist. But naturally, I just have a conversation, like, you know, every now and then I'll input one of them questions, but I just naturally have the conversations. Like, I think it makes it real. I mean, no one wants to sit down at the end of the day and feel like they just had to answer a bunch of questions as a homework. I think the conversation makes it real. And honestly, when you asked me if I had questions, I didn't, because I know the layout that I use, and I'm much like you. I do a little homework and I research them, and I have questions up on my phone that fits that artist, and I make every question individually for that artist, because I want it to be personal. I don't want to be like, okay, in music, where is your career going? That's a very basic question. And to me, it takes the personal out of it. So I try to make every one of my questions, like, for instance, but, and I'm just going to throw this out, and this is just one that comes top of my head. Bubba, with you and your career in music and now what you're doing with OCVS, what's next for you? See, to me, that's so much more personal than how I asked the first one. So I think that makes a big difference on the opening of it, because it people see, all right, he took enough time to look me up, research me, have questions geared towards me, not just the average Joe.
That may be the area where we differ the most. I don't do any homework, Willie. Maybe it's because you're back to being a college student now that you're getting into the books and preparing mentally for your episodes. How do you prepare spiritually? Because you're having some really tough conversations sometimes with these people, and you never know where it's going to take you, right? Or what trauma or what pain points of your own that it might hit on. Is there a spiritual preparation that you kind of take before an episode gets started, or are you just naturally kind of prepared to have any conversation that comes up?
Honestly, I don't prepare at all. What you see on all my footages, that's me. That's the genuine me. I can go up to Joe Schmo up in the street and have maybe not the same conversation about music, but I can have them heartfelt and spiritual conversations with Joe Schmo down the street. So I really don't have to prepare, because I'm fortunate enough, and it comes so natural. I mean, even you said it when I told you about starting the podcast, you have the heart for it, and that will be the biggest thing is I have a heart for this, and the trying to think of the right words. That's me. I struggle with wording, and I'm so thankful for ChatGPT sometimes because of that.
Well, and thank goodness you don't have to type up all of your episodes and you can just talk.
You ain't wrong. You ain't wrong, because there'd be a whole lot of spelling grammars. But you know what? At the end of the day, and I have episodes where my little girl, she comes in, I don't edit anything. Even if I stumble with my words, for one, I don't edit anything, because I want people to see, you know what? He struggles with the way he words stuff and he stumbles. But you know what? He's doing it. And his daughter's coming up in the middle of the interview. Like, I did an interview with Chase Grant a while back, and his daughter was coming in. My daughter was coming in, and it was just, I left it because I want the rawness of everything. I never edited an episode. To me, truthfully, I probably don't know how, but I could figure it out. But I like the rawness of it. I like the fact that people see the struggles that I have on overcoming the speech. And a 2-year-old, now 3-year-old coming in the interviews, and I do really good, and I don't let her come on screen, but I want the realness of it. How boring would it be if you edit every episode and every episode come out cookie cutter? To me, that would be boring, because the rawness, I feel the rawness in my show, whether it's the interruptions from my daughter and me losing my train of thought, or a squirrel running on the fence and I get distracted. That has happened. True story. That makes my show. That makes it real and relatable. And I think that's a big obstacle that I have had to overcome, because I do have my speech issue, and I use a lot of words wrong sometimes, and I've had to learn to adapt to that it's okay that I don't say the right thing every time, or I stumble on what exactly I'm trying to get out, and I hope people, when they see this, they know that it's okay to not have all the answers and go with the flow.
Well, and I think what's interesting and what we showcase a lot with both of our shows is that a podcast isn't network television. We're not confined to so many minutes that this has to go on air and being on a timeline. An episode can be 15 minutes or an hour and a half. It doesn't matter. And we really don't know what that's going to be until we hit record and do it. Right? It's about the conversations that we're having and not cutting that off because there's a time limit coming out. And I think that's a reason for why our world is so messed up today, is that everything has been reduced to, a 30-second clip on, pick the news organization, right? When they're arguing with each other in little gaps like that, or just the nature of short form content with TikTok and YouTube shorts and Instagram reels, right? That conversations are just not happening in that length, but they need to happen. And then you can take clips from those, and to put those out there for other people, but you have to find points that resonate. And I don't think you get to those points that resonate with people if you're trying to fit everything inside of a little tiny box that's 95 seconds long. And if you go over that, well, then I have to edit it to get it to that. No, I don't think that's how you get there at all. So I commend you. And I know some of your episodes can get very lengthy, can run over an hour because of the conversation you're having. And because you don't know what conversation you're going to have when you get in there in the studio with the person, right? You may have done a little bit of homework, and yes, this is something of their career, but you don't know about what traumas in their history that you may bring out of them with the conversation. And I feel like that's the soul impact, right? Like that is the actual healing that's happening right in front of everyone's eyes.
Oh, absolutely. Like I did an episode that with a guy named Weston Brandon, and I was asking questions about one of his things he has going on. It's called Drive. And I don't remember what they all stand for, but as he was going into this, it was just hearing his story of what he went through. And it's not my story to tell, so I'm not going to tell it. And he kept saying, "Oh, I'm sorry, I'm rambling." I said, "No, don't be sorry. That's what this is about. This is about you being able to express yourself. If you're angry, be angry. If you're sad because you're still in the middle of it, that's okay too." In fact, I did an interview where I cried on it because the issue we talked about was so relatable. So I think all of that combined, and I have taken some pointers from you because, you're constantly telling me, not telling me, let me rephrase that, helping me and mentoring me along the way, where my podcast, I look back at the first episode I did with you, and I watched that one a lot because Monkey likes to watch that one because it has Uncle Bubba in it and Daddy in it. So I definitely have seen the growth, and I think that's what's so important about this is that I don't care about my ratings. And I know that sounds horrible, but I don't care if I have 5 people watching this video or if I have 105 watching this video. To me, what's more important is the message that is delivered. If I have one person that is impacted by what is being talked about in the interview and that helped them heal through that, to me, that's more important than getting 1,000 views. Now, would I like to go global? Absolutely. Who wouldn't? But I'm going to do it one person at a time, one heart at a time. Hey, that might be a new slogan. I feel it. But no, it's just, that's how we do it. And I make sure, like I said, I tell everyone you're loved, because coming from a home where I wasn't told I love you a lot, and I know what it's done to me as an adult. And, you've heard it. We'd be on the phone and Cheyenne comes up randomly now and says, "Daddy, I love you." That's because of me, because I want her to know whether we're going down the road or I'm in the middle of a podcast. She could come up right now. Well, she ain't. She's at school. But she could come up right now and say, Daddy, I love you. I wouldn't care who heard it. I would look right down at her and say, I love you too, sissy. Because I think that is so important on molding and breaking these generational curses. Because, and I'm sure you can relate, there's stuff that you've gone through that you've had to struggle to overcome because of them generational curses. So that is so important that when you overcome them things, that you don't keep looking back at them, you know. And I'm going to go back to the rearview mirror and the windshield. To me, it's so important that you got to remember, keep your eyes on where you're going, because, you know, everybody's been in a car. They know how big the windshield is compared to the rearview mirror or even your side mirrors, you know, because in a semi, they don't have rearview mirrors. But no matter the analogy, it's that where you're going bigger than what's behind you. Now, I'm not telling you don't go in your car and don't pay attention to your mirrors. I'm not saying that. Please, for my safety and everybody else's safety on the road, pay attention to your mirrors. But it's more important in a life aspect of where you've been, where you're going versus where you've been. Because honestly, where you've been has influenced on who you are, them life lessons. Because it's not necessarily about, oh, this is what I've done. This is what I can't, you know, it's how you get up. You know, failure is only failure when you refuse to get up. You know, you may fail at it this way, find another way. And trust me, I failed a lot, okay? I even fell through a floor. But I found another way, and I kept my hope. And you got to find something that motivates you. And it's going to be different for everyone. You know, you got to find that why. You know, my why is being a better dad and a better father being a better father and providing for my daughter and being a better leader for my daughter. That's my why. I know yours is about your family as well. And there's nothing wrong with that. But if that don't motivate you enough, then you got to find that why to drive you further.
Yeah, as someone who didn't have a why, and that's kind of how I ended up in the trouble that I did, because I was a little bit clueless at that point in my life as far as why I was here. I can speak to how powerful it can be. And now I definitely have my wife and my kids obviously are a big part of that, but also this community that we're building. The fact that, you know, yes, I was the head of my own ship when it was just the scene projects, but now, like, I don't put you guys underneath of me as part of the network, but rather that you put me above you and in front of you as the captain of the larger vessel. Right. And you give me that, not necessarily power, but you trust me with that direction to say, hey, we trust you to go guide this ship and to avoid the frickin' rocks, like carry us to the wherever it is that we're going. I don't want to say the promised land or anything like that, but to that. And I don't think there's ever a destination. I talked about it on an episode today, is like, the point is just to keep doing exactly what we're doing now and to never stop doing it. Right. So it's like, how do you just maintain the course to keep going around the universe, doing the same thing and impacting as many people's lives as we can over that span of time, you know, careening through the universe as it is. And I'm very proud to be at that level with you all. I'm very proud to lead this team that we've built. And I take a lot of, not just pride, but a lot of a lot of humbleness with that too, right? Because none of you have to be here. You could all be doing your own thing and be just as successful, or maybe more so, in your own rights. And maybe you will be one day. But right now, at this time, where we're at with this network and with everybody's shows, experiencing incredible growth in so many ways, I couldn't be more proud of the team, not just myself. I never look at what we've done. And you talk about the rear view mirror. And of course, the two of us have a lot of failures that are back there that we're not looking at. But I also think that you can't look back at all the things that have been successes and to go, well, look at everything that I've done, or look at everything that I did back then. What are you doing now? What's next? What's the next goal? Well, how are you impacting lives today, tomorrow, and in the future? And good on you. Give yourself a pat on the back when you deserve it for the things that you've done. But if you're not continuing to be in service to your community, then all of those things are for naught anyway.
Yeah, and absolutely. And honestly, I would say it has nothing to do with you being a leader. And I'm not saying you aren't a leader. But for me personally, from day one, it was the respect. We have connected, and honestly, and I tell everybody, with you, I felt like it was a friend I've known for 40 years. I'm not 40 yet, but you feel like a friend that I've been friends with.
Neither am I, Willie. I don't know if that was a shot at my old age or.
No, I was just saying, instantly, it was one of them friends that you felt like you've known for a lifetime, and we have connected respectfully on a level. And honestly, I don't see myself going anywhere. I really don't. I mean, the podcast world, joining with you was probably one of the best things I could have done, because it has opened so many doors, through you in the introduction to Charlotte. Next year, we're heading on 2 major benefits here in Missouri to help raise money for OCVS. So it's a respect, but it's the opportunity too, because the opportunity is yours. You don't limit what we can do and say, okay, on Soul Impact, and this is what we talked about before I had agreed to really come on the network. I want this to be my baby, I'll take your input, I'll listen, but ultimately Soul Impact is my baby. You never come in and you never say, okay, I like what you're doing, but it needs to be ran X, Y, and Z. There's the free reins to do it how I wish. And you are, I have so much respect for you, and I tell everybody this when I talk about you. Every episode I do, there's a little bit of Bubba in every episode. And even when I did my interviews on the radio station, you were mentioned. And it's not because I want to help Bubba get clout. It's because the importance of that mentoree-mentee relationship that we have, and we're friends. I'm not saying it's just a mentor relationship, but it's that benefit of having someone that's gone through this long before me. Yeah, we share a lot of the same life struggles and the bullcrap we've gone through. But that connection is what makes this such a great team. And I think, in my opinion, we all connect on some kind of level through our personal life and what we've gone through. And you have never come in and said, it's my podcast network and I'm the captain of the ship and you're going to do it my way. That's never been you.
And I hope it never is, Willie. I think we succeed because we have a great team, right? And that everyone is doing their own thing and bringing so much of themselves to their product. I don't want you to just be a host of a show on my network or on our network. I want you to be the host of your show. Go host your show, do your thing. And if I've respected you enough to bring you on as, you know, as a part of the network, then I have to respect you enough to give you that creative freedom to make that show whatever you want. I also have the freedom to, if it goes off the rails, to be like, what are you doing? You know, but I think because of the respect you talk about, that you have that respect for coming into the organization, that you're not going to let it go off of the rails for that same reason, right? So.
Oh, absolutely. But the thing is, and I've learned, you know, I've always believed in myself to a point, but I've always struggled with that. And then it's when we talked and you're like, even when my podcast was just starting, and I was like, okay, I can do this. I can do this. Fake it till you make it and it'll happen. I ain't gonna lie. That's a philosophy I had when I first started the podcast. But then you talked to me about joining the network. And I was like, wait a minute. If Bubba believes in this, you know, maybe I should believe in myself a little more. So part of where I am with the podcast, I will wholeheartedly say it's because of you. Because when I felt like my back was up against the wall, you helped me find another way to get there. It isn't necessarily about one way's right versus one way's wrong and how to get to the end goal, you know. And I look at that on my show. I have interviewed a lot of artists and on how they sit down and they write their music. I'm over 30 episodes in, and I don't think any artist has ever gave me the same cookie cutter answer. And I think that's amazing because that just goes to show that where you are and where you get to the end and how you get there isn't necessarily important on how you get there, whether you take a bus, a plane, a car, you hitchhike. It's the end product, you know. And, you know, this is my shout out to you because I've started using my new introduction. That's a song from your band, you know, and I don't, you know, you never, I asked, you said yes. That's a song that we heard on Soul Impact that resonated with me. So now I'm able to, every episode, give people a small taste of that. And to me, you hit the dead on the head earlier about community. I don't think my community is just Salem, Missouri. My community is you, the Scene Project, any artist that I've had on my show, any, you know, people I encounter at the festivals, because it's got to take that community of people to help encourage one another. And we are the media. I mean, we've got to be able to say, okay, oh my goodness, I heard Bubba's new song on on Love Noise. Let's get that song out there. Hey, you know, share it. When you hear something new from an artist, even if it's not someone on the Scene Project, share that stuff, because a lot of times them shares are what's going to help them get discovered, you know. And there are some artists that I love dearly, but late at night when they've been drinking, they don't need to be on stage screaming in a microphone. It's the persona we put off. You know, we, on your show, my show, Pablo's show, any of our shows, Brian's show, none of us, Boo Boo's show, I know I'm forgetting someone.
Ross's show.
Ross's. I couldn't think of his name. Sorry. I've not got to meet him. But we all put that personality into it and make every show our own. You know, it's not about, I'm Soul Impact. Yes, I say it loud and I say it proud. I'm Wild Willie from Soul Impact. But we're family. And that's what I honestly feel. The people at the Scene Project and the people that we encounter, you know, look at Dalton Jones and Chase Grant, you know, the relationships that has been formed with them and seeing their success starting to unfold, you know, that's a true blessing that we're getting to be a part of. That, you know, I find that more motivating and more moving than being a host on a podcast. I get to be part of somebody else's story and help push them along. You know, if I get clout from it because he was on my show, great. But that's not why I do it. I do it because I want to help push artists around. If I, you know, and every artist that I have on my podcast, I asked them and I take one of their songs and I play it when I DJ. For one, I think it's us as a community pulling together and helping promote one another. I can't ask an artist to promote my podcast if I'm not going to promote them. You know, and like with me and you, we've gotten really close and there's doors opening. Like me and you and Danielle put a show together at the rodeo. Dude, that was freaking amazing. I ain't gonna lie. I may not have been there, but it was such a great, and that's what's so great about this team, is that we work on so many levels that we work together. And you've got to find, if you're out there and you don't have that, I'm not saying we're the answer to everybody's problem. I would like to say I'm the answer to everybody's problem, but reality is sometimes I'm not that missing piece. My advice to those people is go find your missing piece. You know, if you want to reach out and say, hey, where do I go here? I'd be like, I don't know, but I can find answers. You know, I'm fortunate enough. I'm not an artist by any means. I am in the sound industry. But I can say, okay, and I've sent people to you because, and I've sent people songs to the radio station that I interviewed on. And I'm not saying this to give myself a pat on the back. I'm saying this because of how important it is to rally around our communities. And the community is you, me, anyone we interact with on a day-to-day basis. That's our community. You know, heck, every time Monkey hears me on the phone with you, is that Bubba? Hi, Bubba. You know, it's them relationships that are formed. You know, with Casey and Captain Jax, you know, them relationships are what's going to take the industry to the next level. I wholeheartedly believe, because I think the day, and this is my opinion of it, again, I'm no artist, but I think the days where artists are having to conform to what a record label wants them to be are over. Because there's so many independent artists out there that are actually making it, that it's showing other artists that I don't have to conform to what this record label wants me to be. If they want me to portray as a party boy when I'm really a homebody, you know what? Be that homebody. You don't have to be who you are. Stay true to who you are. You know, and we have talked about that so much. And I think that's the biggest thing that I see is where people try to, you know, there's so many different artists where, like, Storyteller, I have mad respect for Storyteller. And he was one of them guys right there with you that, you know, what I know with sound is because of a few people that stepped in and guided me along the way. So it's so important that when you see an issue, as an artist, if you see an issue or whoever you are, you see an issue, don't be like, well, there was this issue and it just wasn't any good. Well, did you talk to them about fixing the issue and help guiding them? No, instead you want to gripe about what was going on instead of help being part of the solution.
Well, I think that's a great point to cut off the interview portion. Do you want to swap places back and close out your own show, Willie?
Yeah, I don't know how to swap, but yes.
I got you.
At least I'm honest. Again, Bubba, I want to thank you for doing this. I think it went really well, and it's one of them ideals I had that go ahead, make fun of it. Let's hear it.
I don't have to. You have fans now. They're going to make fun of you for saying it.
At least it didn't say idea.
Well, it's hunting season. You don't want to be throwing ideas into anything.
Okay, so what is it? What is it? If it's not ideal, what is it?
It's an idea.
See, I'll never get that.
It's all right. You got really good ideals as well as good ideas.
I had this vision, okay, that just worked really well. But
awesome, Willie. Thanks for having me, man. This was a pleasure to do this with you, brother.
But y'all, until next time, remember the importance of loving one another. It is so important to love each other, build each other up. Until next time, I love you guys.